Yes folks, and welcome. Today we continue with the big topic of polishing. Now it's time to kick off the polishing season. Spring has really kicked off. The weather is ideal, and that's why many people are now starting with polishing, using their first polishing machine, taking their first steps, or perhaps looking for some small special tips, as is the case today. Today in this video, there are many individual exciting topics packed into one video, namely the topic of microfiber, the topic of rotation, and the topic of tight spots. So today is going to be super informative. I will try to keep it as short and compact as possible, but I want to give you as much information as I can. Today we are polishing a fender. It is super curved, with many concave and convex areas. This means there is a lot of variation, resulting in complete chaos when it comes to the surface. Then really deep scratches and rotation, and we take a microfiber polishing pad to achieve a great result as quickly as possible. And I'll show you that now in the video. Have fun. Let's get started. First, we'll begin with an overview. What are we using today? I have the detailing cart with me so I don't have to keep running to the table. Everything we need is here. 2001. I have brought the soft polishes here again as I am currently testing them for you. This means I try to use them as much as possible when it comes to the car. Compound, the cutting variant, then the polishing and the finishing. However, that doesn't mean you have to use all three in succession. And I always say again, a polish essentially consists of two steps. We want to remove the scratches and we want to create shine. A polishing system with 5 polishers or even more or 4 polishers is absolutely outdated for me. I don't use it either. If we need this cutting variant here, we will go directly over it with the finishing afterwards. If there are still slight grey haze or maybe light holograms from the tilting and so on, we will take a look at that as well. But it is not mandatory to use the finishing product afterwards because you can achieve a beautiful finish even with just that. This means that you can generally work in a 2-step process for 98% of all polishing actions. You might like to do a test spot with the polishing, or you might say, okay, no, that looks too damaged, so I will use the compound right away and then finish with the appropriate polish. 2-step system, scratches, shine. As a polishing machine, I have brought the following. You can see here, this is what it's about today. It's about these curved edges. From the front, everything looks nice and smooth. But if you look a bit from the side, you can already see that everything is very, very curved, very concave, as you might know from the rims. Up here, we have a narrow edge, and here we have a really nice curve. Here it is concave, and here the fender goes out again. So, this requires a special machine, specifically with a small backing plate. And I have brought you the idea again with the ER plate, and now I want to show you again why this simply does not work. Look here, you have a kind of airspace under the pad. This means that when you press down, you are polishing a lot on the surface both at the bottom and at the top. Also here, look, the pad is sticking out on the left and right. This means you are polishing heavily on the edge. Up here you can't polish properly, or the polishing pad is floating in the air. This means you also have very uneven pressure there. Everything is unfavorable. And this is even more pronounced in some vehicles. That's why I have the Evo Mini here, which we will now equip appropriately. We also have the SCANGRIP, degreaser, tape, and here are the appropriate plates and pads. We'll take a look at all of this shortly, and the cloths are one floor down from me. But first let's take a look at the surface, and I believe it becomes very, very clear that someone has already polished here. Yes, and those were my last 2 workshop participants, as they wonderfully polished the fender here using a rotary polisher and left the rest for me. Thanks to you. No, I wanted to include this here in the video for you. That's why I said, guys, stop there, that's enough. You can do it. You are now fully equipped, and that's how the 2 of them managed it. Absolutely top, beautifully clear, and this variant is no exception. Now I'll show you on this side how you can achieve this wonderfully, even in a very short time, and how to work on these edges very nicely with the right equipment, including rotary tools and, for example, the Evo Mini. This is going to be very, very interesting. Look, they did all of this with rotary tools. Great, great, so feel free to come by the workshop if you're interested. It's worth it. You'll learn how to fix things like this ideally. The first question that is surely burning in your mind is, what then? Why rotary? I can work wonderfully here with the eccentric mode. Yes, we have already tested this here, but the scratches were so massive and so deeply embedded in the material of this clear coat. It's easy with the eccentric mode that we have now, but that wasn't sufficient, which is why we switched to rotation. That's why today's video is just a little introduction to the topic of rotation. There will be much more on this in the coming weeks and months. And I don't demonize rotation, but I just don't recommend it to any beginner who has never polished before to start sanding a nice fender with rotation. You can certainly do it, but you didn't get that tip from me. But still, I want to incorporate the topic of rotation into the video guides here as well. And today, we are really starting very small, not with the large backing plates of 125, but smaller. Let's take this apart first. This will also be a bit of a longer video, so definitely grab something cool to drink with you. Down here, I always show a lot of things. While pressing the button down here, going in with the key, counterclockwise. Then at some point, snap. It clicks in, it's secure, and then we can simply loosen this here and unscrew it together with the backing plate. You can also do the rest with your finger, depending on what feels better for you in terms of handling. So, now we can switch to the short or long rotation shaft, or adapter. And I prefer the slightly longer one because it gives me a better overview, keeps me further away from the surface, and allows me to control it better. It simply makes it more enjoyable for me. You can also take the short one. Both are included with the Evo Mini. Now I just need to tighten it. And now we need the right plate. I have the ER here. Why 50? Because today we are working with a microfiber pad and the appropriate cut polish. And you can see here that the size fits ideally on the entire surface. It also glides in nicely here. On the 2001 fender, we can go nice and long along the edge of the fender. Wonderful. This fits in well here and here too. You can certainly take a size smaller, but I think the pad with the matching plate fits here very, very well. Now we take this one. Press down here again firmly, in case it starts to rotate. But it should actually work well. And now once again, tighten the plate. Put on the polishing pad and then you're already done with the equipment. This video is going to be a bit longer because I have a lot to explain. The transition from foam to microfiber and from random orbital to rotary should not be done casually, and the same techniques shouldn't be applied. Here, distributing at level 2 and polishing at level 6 is a bit different. Always remember that with a rotary polishing machine, the pad simply rotates around its own axis. That means, like on a carousel, if you spin too fast, you want to go outward. You are the sluggish point and you fly outward, just like the polish. This means that if we put too much polish on this small pad, it will simply fly away. Sometimes it just happens. No matter how little you apply here, it always occurs. That's why I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks on how you can avoid it. But at some point, it will happen that polish splatters around. There are worse things in life. We take a bit of polish here, and since we just saw that the scratches are very, very extreme, we take a little polish, and you see, I'm using very, very little. You now have two options. Either you apply it directly with the bottle on the surface, just press a little bit on here. If a little extra comes out, that's no problem at all. Press it a bit into these small fibers, close the bottle again, and now you have distributed everything here very, in quotation marks, centrally in the pad, because the polish moves outward on its own. Now you go here onto the surface and first choose the point where you will work. To show you this better, we won't start right at the top because it doesn't film as nicely, even though the polishing is exactly the same. Instead, we will work in this area, in this longitudinal direction, as it is simply the best to fill. Distribute the polish a bit so that the paint must be clean and prepared. Makes sense? So we have skipped that after the many tutorials and guides. That should go without saying, and now we are going to a very, very low level. And now comes the big difference between eccentric and rotary. With rotary, the speed is significantly lower. This means that we need to use steps 1, 2, and 3 here. You will not be working with step 6. You will polish the paint away in a short time if you provoke it. So really, for step 1, just distribute it a bit to get a feel for it and don't press down too hard, because the cut level is clearly higher here. And I don't want to hide or conceal anything from you. Look here. We have some small splashes at level 1, and the polish is starting to move further outwards. And it can also happen that a few splashes just fly away. That's completely normal, and I can't go slower than level 1 here. This means you should also pay attention to the movement speed. You are not polishing like this now. If you apply as little pressure as possible, you can do that, but I would always recommend choosing a slightly faster speed for the movement of the machine, and this is how it is done. But it is still very, very slow. This process is quite intricate and requires a lot of patience and precision. I know people who polish like this too. Many people I know also use this method to achieve a polished finish. That has nothing to do with polishing. You still need to give the process enough time. Therefore, I have found the best combination for myself in this regard. Level 2, a moderate speed here while moving with light pressure, and it's difficult to teach someone this through a video. I can only tell you these points. It's obviously better if you come to a workshop with me, because then I can show you exactly how to do it right here. You can practice here, and that's a huge point. If a few microfibers fly away, that's completely normal with a new pad. It's no problem at all. So now I'm just going to polish a piece, and you can watch closely how I do it. I move relatively quickly over the surface. This simply allows me not to remove too much paint, because we have a significantly higher paint removal here than when we work with an eccentric polishing machine. Therefore, we also achieve a faster and more effective polishing result. That's why many people prefer to work with rotary machines when there is a bit of time pressure. But it really does have its disadvantages. I will come back to this in later videos, because we have good heat development, but it's all still within limits. You can really apply much more pressure, generate much more heat, and work much faster on the cut. But these are all things that you should gradually teach yourself and get accustomed to. I'm now going to show you the result. So, we really only polished for a very short time. It was just a very small action. I'm just going to take the polish off, and you can now take a look at what has already happened here. We will take the light in hand, shine it on here, and what we see is that we have very, very slight, minimal holograms in it. But we will take care of that right away. And I want to show you everything. I don't want to withhold anything from you. You need to see this. Do you see these very light holograms? Do you see this light reflection here? This is also called holograms or sanding marks. However, this is completely normal. It occurs automatically when polishing with a rotary polishing machine 2001. Now let's go directly over this with the finish and see what kind of result we get. And what are we doing now? Quite simple. We switch from the microfiber cutting pad to a foam finish pad. But we stay in rotation mode because we don't want to change the adapter now. We take the finish polish here. You still have to keep in mind that we are still in rotation mode. This means putting a little polish in the center of the pad, which will distribute it a bit on the surface. This way, it spreads out on the pad, as you can see here. And remember to significantly reduce the speed again, so that the polish doesn't fly around. What I have just shown you is just working in the polish, spreading it so that it distributes a bit further in the pad. You can see here that if you do this too quickly, if you increase the speed too fast, you immediately get these large splashes, but here it remains within limits. Normally, it is much worse. I can provoke it by now making too much speed too early. Okay, I had already worked it in too well. It is already well distributed. Now, even at level 3, you no longer have any polish splatters. But we are now doing the finish at a relatively slow setting. I like to use setting 2, and now we will move evenly over it. It is important that it does not become misaligned, as any misalignment can automatically create new sanding marks and holograms. And that's why you need to practice a bit. Keep the machine nice and straight, don't tilt it up and down like this, because that creates too strong sanding marks. However, with the finish pad finish polish, it should work very well. So now let's just see how it looks. You can also see the time. I just noticed that I need to go over this part again, but you can also see that in terms of time investment, it's absolutely fine. And I'll bring you right in front of it. So I need to work on the transition again because I didn't really go over it properly. I'll show you directly in front of it. Here. That really looks good already. We have a nice, clear spot. We no longer have those sanding marks. Over here, they are coming back again. You can see them a little bit. So it's at this transition. I need to go over it again. 2001. So you can already see the handling of a rotary polishing machine. I'll summarize it like this. It's simply different from that of an eccentric. You go clearly, so at least that's how I do it. I move noticeably faster over the surface and can check more often. Has anything changed? Has perhaps a stronger haze come in? Because we are really focusing on safety as the temperature builds up significantly faster and you don't need nearly as much mechanical pressure. And that's something you can't just change from an eccentric to a rotary polishing machine by simply saying, oh, I'll polish just the same and there we go. Take it nice and slow with good pressure. Let it work. This can really go wrong with rotation. So you need to be very, very careful. I'll pull you out of this situation. Now let's see what you can also do. Here, that looks really, really good. Of course, we still need to go a bit further to the left, but I also need to make a cut beforehand. So that looks very, very good. We can take a look over here. There are still all the scratches in there. Very, very intense down here as well. And where we have already tried, yes, the camera manages. It looks very, very good. What you could do now is say, okay, I will just focus on the cut for now. The holograms and small sanding marks don't interest me at all, right now. What's important is that the scratches are gone. And you can already see that after you have polished out after the cut, you can tell if there are still scratches or not. For example, up here in the direct light, we will also go over the edge again because the heavy marks here are already visible with the indirect light. Very, very extreme. Let's go over it again. First, you will only make the cut, then you will switch to eccentric for the finish so that it is simply much easier. And then you can do it like this as well. So there are different options. Let's do a quick round up here again, or since this is such a really bad spot up here, we'd like to take another look at it. So this is really extreme. You can't even really see the light. It's so diffuse and scattered. You can hardly recognize anything from the lamp. In contrast, when it is polished up here, you can see the light really nicely. And here, you can't see anything anymore. It's just a white spot. You can see here that it dries relatively quickly. I'll show it to you. Do you see this here? This is a bit of light dust formation. Microfiber pads always need to be brushed out a bit, or I have an even better alternative for you. This is a scrub pad, and this one has a black fiber, which I personally do not use for cleaning tasks, because with the black fiber, you can't see at all if there are any dirt residues or how much. I now always use this specifically to brush these pads here, and I'll just show you that now. It's actually 1,000 times gentler. You can also see some dust trickling down here. This is much gentler than rubbing over it with a large brush, and it really loosens the small microfiber hairs wonderfully. But you can see this little dust coming out, can't you? And this really preserves these pads and is simply a wonderful way to clean them. You can also easily wash out the pad afterwards and keep using it. So this is always in use for cleaning the microfiber pad for me. You could also use a regular white one. I will link it for you below. I should have charged the battery earlier. Well, it can still manage this. Let's go over it again with the finishing variant. You can also use a smaller pad. So, the battery was empty. Maybe we should charge it before the video. But that's not a problem at all. What we can see well now is that I increased the speed relatively quickly. This means that it splashed a bit against the paint, but the soft 99 polishes can be easily wiped away. Well, that looks very, very nice, and it really does look very, very nice. Absolutely top. And down here, it needs to continue. A bit more with the deeper scratches. So yes, it continues here at the front. So very, very nice to see. It worked well, so you can easily go over it. This also works really, really well with these slightly curved edges or surfaces. And I believe that was really a lot of information. And if you have never polished in this area, even with rotation and so on, and with microphase, that was already a lot of input. So, you might want to watch the video a second time because I want to explain a lot and try to speak a bit faster, which is why I want to pack a lot of information into the video. You have seen well, with rotation and a microfiber pad, it is a very, very quick process. However, it also comes with certain risks. You really have to approach it very slowly. If you have gotten an Evo Mini, you have the adapter and everything included. Just feel your way around it. Maybe get a small test hood or a small test area where you can actively make mistakes for a short time. Sometimes press too hard, sometimes tilt the polishing pad a bit, just to see what happens. And I want to create an extra video for you where I actively do everything completely wrong so that you don't replicate that in your handling. But you should just see what happens when I don't do it correctly. Additionally, there is an exciting video demonstrating how to place the microfiber pad evenly, choosing a very low speed, gradually adjusting, and maintaining a consistent speed with the movement of the machine. Not too fast, not too slow. Control the heat so that it doesn't rise too much, because if you let it spin too quickly, you will have an incredibly high cutting performance, especially with a microfiber pad and a cutting compound, it really takes off. And you definitely don't want to polish a code like that, where the edges are a bit curved downwards, and suddenly you polish through the paint at the edge, revealing a light blue or maybe even white, or you can see the metal underneath. That can happen quite quickly. Therefore, approach the rotation gradually and really start off very, very relaxed. Keep the machine nice and straight, also with both hands, so you have as much control as possible, and then hold it nice and straight, not at an angle, not like this, not like that, and not pointing down. A rotary polishing machine, especially in the smaller size, is really a different matter compared to an extender polishing machine. It forgives a lot more, a lot more. That's why I also recommend that you work on such an area, if you can, first with an eccentric polishing machine or with an eccentric adapter in this case. And if you then realize, okay, it just doesn't work, there are too deep issues involved, then you can take a look at the topic of rotation. This is just the beginning of the topic. There will be much, much more to come in the next days and weeks. So take your time and approach it really relaxed. There will be many more videos on this, including a separate video on posture and speed. I just wanted to give you an impression in this video of how quickly you can achieve a really nice result. I also find that the soft 99 polytonen are really good for this. They can be easily wiped off and do not stick to the surface. So that worked out really well. And you saw again a two-step cut and finish. You can also finish it off with an eccentric polisher afterwards. Just swap the adapter, complete everything with the cut, and then switch to finish with the eccentric. No problem at all. You don't need to stress about it. Thank you very much for watching. I know that was a lot of information. We will now dive into this topic together in the upcoming videos. We dive into the different topics. I'll also show you what you can do really wrong. We'll actively make some mistakes, but if I'm going to polish anything here, I'd rather show you on the test hood. I don't want to polish anything on the BMW, so there are many, many things coming up. Look forward to it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate a thumbs up. If you have any questions, use the WhatsApp number. You can contact me anytime for free. And otherwise, if you need help with assembling a polishing machine set, or if you are looking for a suitable polishing machine for yourself, or if you have questions about the Evo Mini, just leave a comment below. You can find everything I used today in the video description below. Now we're done. Lots of information. Until the next video. So Bastian, what a pity.